Good evening, my dear students. It's me, Antomarie Zobia here to teach you another new method in this class, that is community language learning. So far in this ELT classroom, we have learned various methods to learn and teach English language. The first one is we have learned grammar translation method, direct method, and then audiolingual, CLT method, CLL, and the approaches to teach and learn language. In today's class, we are going to learn community language learning. Of mine will be having the following outline, that is, the first thing is we are going to learn the background of CLL. Okay, what is CLL that we are going to learn? So, what do you mean by community? In India, we have the word community which has various different meanings. And here it is a brief definition for what is meant by community. Community, which means a group of people living in the same place or having a particular characteristic in common. Maybe the community of people who are living together in a particular place. So here we can see two groups of people where it is a classroom. So in classroom, the learners should be living as a community. That is what is invented. So being the community, they have to learn the language in a community manner, in a cooperative manner. So this method was developed by the person called Charles Arthur Curran and his associates, and he is also known as Charles A. Curran, and he is basically he is a Jesuit priest and he is a specialist in counseling and a professor of psychology at Loyola University, Chicago. And we have given the community learning aspect. So what do you mean by community and counseling learning? What he has done is this application of psychological counseling techniques to learning is known as counseling learning. That is, he is a counselor, he is a professor of psychology. What has he done is, he has applied the psychological counseling techniques and principles to learn the thing in common. That is called as counseling learning. So when we adopt it to language teaching, it is called as CLL. So what do you mean by CLL? It represents the use of counseling learning theory to teach languages. So what do you mean by counseling learning? So here in CLL, they have followed the Rogerian counseling techniques. So in the next thing we are going to see is what do you mean by Rogerian counseling techniques? In India, we have the common notion that counseling is something where only the people with certain problems will go for it, and people with some with trauma, they may go for it like. But it is absolutely not. Counseling is a place where we can go and get some guidance and support to solve the problems or the issues that are going in our life. So what do you mean by Rogerian counseling? According to them, counseling is one person giving the advice or assistance and the support to another person who has a problem or in some way in need of it. It doesn't mean that the person is always having a problem. Rather, in way it is to get some guidance to proceed in the life. That is also known as Rogerian counseling. So this format of Rogerian counseling only is adopted into teaching and learning aspect. For that, certain changes have been made in the classroom that we are going to see in the next slide. So, in CLL classroom, the counseling metaphor has been adopted. In it, the teacher will be playing the role of a counselor and the learners will be playing the role of a client. These terms, counselor and clients, it is very much used in counseling psychology. So, where the teacher should not be the authoritative figure, rather the teacher should be a counselor. And where the learners should be treated as the clients who are coming for a counseling. And it draws on two important traditions of English language teaching. One is the humanistic approach of language teaching. Another one is language alternation or code switching. These two are somewhat new to the language teaching and learning pedagogy. So in the next thing, we are going to learn the procedure of CLL, how the CLL classroom is. If you just look at this particular slides, you can see that the learners are sitting in a circle and the teacher is standing outside of the circle. And look at this particular picture at this corner where we have The recorder in the middle of the particular table and the mic has been given to the students. So what the students will do, what will they do, and what is the CL procedure? Now we are going to learn. CLL procedure, it is a group of learners where they sit in a circle and the teacher will be standing outside the circle. What the students should do, the students should whisper a message. Whisper in the sense, in a slight language with a less noise, they have to whisper a message in a native language, that is in the mother tongue. And what the teacher should do, the teacher should translate the message that the student has given into the foreign language. The concept is, the learner will be telling it in L1 and the teacher will translate that message into L2. So what the student should do is, student should repeat the sentence that the teacher said in English and they have to record it in the audio recorder. So the students compose further messages in the foreign language along with the help of the teacher, and later the students should reflect the messages that they have learned, and even the actual counseling also will be taken place in the classroom by reflecting on what they have done in the particular class. So this is the CLL procedure where group of learners sit in a circle. Outside of the circle, teacher would be standing there, and where the student will just whisper the message softly in the native language to the teacher, and the teacher translates the message in the foreign language. And the student's duty is to repeat the message in foreign language, especially in front of the audio recorder. It should be recorded. And the student should learn how to compose the messages in the target language with the help of the teacher, with the help of the counselor, and then later the student should listen to the record that they have done it, and they have to reflect about the feelings, how they felt when they spoke in the target language. Like. So I said that it has followed with two important traditions of teaching. So I said one is humanistic approach, another one is language alternation or code switching. So what do you mean by humanistic approach? It has been given by Moscowitz in the year 1978, and it is the blend of what the student feels, thinks and knows with what he is learning in the target language. The aspect is very simple. I am going to learn English language, but the concept is, with what feelings am I learning the language? So what is going on in my mind when I learn the language? Whether am I afraid, or I am happy, or am I sad, like that. So it is the blend of, it is the amalgamation of what the student feels and thinks and knows with what he is learning in the target language. So the concept is, it is the amalgamation of the whole person. That's why in the picture I have given, it is the mind and it is the heart. It should be both combined by the teacher and the learner. So that's why we are telling that it is the holistic learning. It is the whole person learning like. So that is why we have given the formula here. Humanistic approach, in the sense, it is the combination of two. One is the cognitive factor, another one is the affective factor. So what do you mean by cognitive factor? Cognitive, that deals with your intelligence. So the knowledge that you gain, plus it is the affective factor. And as we know, what do you mean by affective factor is, it is the emotions and feelings of the learner, okay, that they undergo. So this combination of affective and cognitive factors makes the humanistic approach in CLL. And the second aspect that they said is, it is language alternation or code switching. It is there in the title itself. Altering in the sense changing, and we also know code switching. So code here refers to the language. As I said, once in the beginning of the classes, the learner will be telling it in the native language and the teacher will be telling it in the target language. So the message or the lesson, it will be first presented in the native language and then it will be presented again in the target language. So the language is altered from L1 to L2, from the mother tongue to the second language. At the same time, the meaning of the flow will be there in the student's mind. For example, if you just go to the film, you watch the film in Tamil, and I just ask you, can you please give me the plot of this particular film? Then you will be telling it in a flow, because you have watched a particular movie in Tamil and your mother tongue is Tamil. So you know the flow of the message, flow of the plot that you come to know. So it is very much easy for you to recall. The only one thing that you have to do is you have to translate. But just keep it in mind, there is also a problem in the translation aspect. So students are encouraged also to overhear. So overhearing in the sense, when the student is talking to the teacher, you have to overhear, and the learner, after listening or learning the L2 from the teacher, the particular student will go and tell the other students. So that time also the students should overhear. So through overhearing also we have to learn the language. So that is the language alternation or code switching that is taking place. Next one. So we are going to see the approach of CLL. So here in the approach of CLL we have the 4 things. First one is the message that has been given by LaForge. LaForge is the student of Charles A. Curran, and he has given the 3 principles for the theory of language. One thing is the linguistic theory, that is structural view of language, and second thing is language could be viewed as a social process, and third one is it is interactional view of language. Language could be seen as a kind of interaction. So we are going to see each one in detail now. First one is linguistic theory. Linguistic theory means it is a structural view of language. When do we say structure, it is just known that phonology, morphology, syntax and semantics. The language has its origin from sounds, phonology and words, that is morphology, and the words combined together and they frame a sentence called syntax, and after reading a sentence we'll be getting the meaning, that is semantics. So the first theory of language or the principle that has been given here is structural view. Language is structured, and that's why we have phonology, morphology, syntax and semantics. So we move to the second theory that has been given, that is language as a social process. So here what they do is, communication is very important because communication is taking place in the language class. First one is with the teacher, another one is with the student. So communication, it is more than a message being transmitted from the speaker to a listener. So where we will be given a kind of message that the speaker is at the same time both the subject as well as the object of his own message. In other words, we could tell also like this: the listener will always be also a speaker, the speaker will always be a listener. So both the speaker as well as a listener, they have to play dual roles here. That is why here we have given one is the linear way of communication, that is sender sends a message to the receiver. It is one way. This kind of communication is not applicable in CLL. So what do we learn is, it is the other hand side where the sender sends a message and the receiver receives it. The very important thing is the receiver should give the feedback to the sender whether the particular person has understood it or not. So that is what we have given. The language is a kind of social process. The process should be there. It is not a one way, it is not a linear way, it should be dynamic. So that's where I said the listener will also be a speaker, the speaker will also be a listener. That's why they will be the subject and object of their own messages. So this kind of communication is needed in this particular language classroom. Is interactional view of language. So what do you mean by interaction? Interaction in the sense, when do we have the communication with two people together? So that's why LaForge has said language is people, language is persons in contact, and language is persons in response also. So it is the language, it is the communication, it is the interaction that makes the entire universe. So here we have two kinds of interactions. One is the interactions between the learners, that is the learner is speaking with the another learner. And second interaction that is taking place in CLL is interaction between the learners as well as novice. And here we have introduced the term called novice. Novice could represent the teacher as well as the person who knows the language. Okay, so two kinds of interactions are taking place in the class. One is the interaction between the learners, and second one is the interaction that is taking place between the learners and the knowers. Knowers, it could be the teacher or the person who knows the language. So through interaction, the one beautiful thing that could be created in the classroom, that is intimacy, the closeness, the belongingness, the bond would be created. It is very much possible. I am having a friend. If I speak a lot, when I share a lot, the intimacy would be developed. Don't take intimacy in a wrong way. Intimacy, which is getting a kind of beautiful bond, okay, the togetherness. So in a classroom, what we have to do is we have to develop a good interaction among the class members. Then the more that we interact, the more intimacy would be created in the classroom, and that would be created as a kind of community. So the process here is the students should interact with the other persons as well as to the teacher, and that interaction will develop a kind of intimacy among the learners, and that intimacy will make the classroom into a community. That is a method, community language learning. As a community, we are going to learn the language. That is the meaning that is intended here. Okay, yes. So here, on the basis of the interaction, on the basis of two kinds of interaction, the second one we are going to focus on, that is the interaction between the learners as well as the learners. So, learners and knowers, based on this interaction, we developed into 5 stages, and Laforge has given these 5 stages. So, stage 1 is dependent, stage 2 is self-assertive, stage 3 is resentful or indignant, and stage 4 is tolerant, and stage 5 is independent. So in the beginning of the interaction, okay, that is the interaction between the teacher and the learner, in the first stage, the learners will be too much dependent on the teacher because the student doesn't know the language. So the student should absolutely depend on the teacher. And little by little, in the stage 2, the learner will assert themselves. When we say assert, it is firmly telling one thing. So self-assertive would be taking place. That is, they will try to talk on their own. And third stage is very important, where the learner would be somewhat resentful and indignant, where they will be aggressed, or kind of anger would be created in the classroom, because it is as we grow, okay, sometimes when a person is correcting a mistake, sometimes we won't accept what it is. So sometimes we may feel the fear of anger. So sometimes the learners will be resentful in the class or indignant in the classroom. And stage 4 is tolerant. So as the learners grow, they will be learning the aspect of tolerance. If somebody corrects my mistake, I should be tolerant enough in order to understand my mistake. And stage 5 is independent. That is, I learn the language, I know where I am committing the mistakes, and I will rectify it. So these are the 5 stages that is involved by the interaction between the learners and knowers, and it is an important question. For example, what are the 5 stages of the interaction between the learners and knowers? So this kind of 5 stages that has been given by Laforge. Stage 1, dependent. Stage 2, self-assertive. Stage 3 is resentful and indignant. 4th, tolerant. And 5th one is independent learner. So in the beginning, the learner is dependent, and the stage 5, the learner is independent. In the stage 1, the learner is a learner. But in the stage 5, the learner will be a knower, the person who knows the language. So we move to the theory of language learning, the second part of the approach. So what do you mean by the theory of language learning? It is, how do we learn the language? So according to CLL, we learn the language, both the aspect, okay, that is what it has been given. True human learning is both cognitive as well as affective. If I am learning anything, if it is a true learning, it should consist of both the cognitive, that is the mind, the intelligence aspect, as well as the affective factor, all the emotions and feelings that I have. So a true human learning should consist of both cognitive as well as affective. So what kind of learning are we insisting in CLL? That is whole person learning. So it is also called as holistic learning, and it is also termed as humanistic learning. So what do you mean by whole person? You are giving the knowledge, the stuff to your mind, as well as the stuff for the development of the human personality. So the learning takes place in the communicative situation where the teachers and learners involved in an interaction. So through interaction only, the learners will becoming a kind of the whole person. A humanistic view of learning will be taken place. So as it said, it consists of 5 stages, and remember, these 5 stages will be a kind of overlapping with the 5 stages that we have seen in the theory of language learning. So all these 5 stages have been compared to the ontogenetic development of the child from birth to the maturity. So the language learning is equal to a person's developed from birth to the maturity. So that is what we are going to learn. Okay, how the L2 learning would be somewhat compared to the development of the child from birth to the maturity, development of baby to an adult. That is what we are going to learn next. So I have divided here, one is a physical change, that is from birth to maturity, what will be happening, and another side we have L2 change, that is from a learner, the learner is becoming a knower. The first stage is baby, birth stage, it will be a baby, and during the baby stage the people will be somewhat very much secured enough with the warmth of the mother. In the same way, in the language classroom, the learners will be feeling secure and belongingness, that is dependent. They will be too much rely on the teacher. Teacher, tell me this, what is the meaning of this? Like that, they will be asking the meaning for all the words and the translation for it. So the first stage, birth stage, here the learners are dependent. And the second stage is child. The baby is just growing little by little. And here also the learner improves or tries to speak something. Okay, they try to achieve something in the target language. And the third stage, here we could see that the learner is just developing a kind of maturity, okay, towards a kind of maturity. So where here also we could see that learner tries to speak independently. So where I know this, I have learned it, so I would be telling it. This is what the mindset of the learner at that time. So that's why I have given learner tries to speak independently and they try to assert his or her own identity in the particular language. And very important thing is, in this particular stage, they mostly they will reject the advice of the novice. They try to neglect the aspects that has been given by the teacher, and sometimes they are unwilling to get the advice also. It is in the same life only. So when we are adult, when we are in the teenage, we mostly reject or we are unwilling to get the advice from the people. It is in the same way in the classroom also. The teacher may give the advice, the teacher may correct the errors, but the learners may not be in the position of accepting it. Okay, and the fourth stage is towards the maturity. That is, we will come to know. See, as we grow, even we can find what first time we will be too much dependent, and we are growing. We try to blabber something, and then we will try that. We will tell that what I am telling only is correct, like. And fourth one is, okay, we will be coming to a kind of maturity where we will realize it, and we have a kind of maturity to accept the criticism. To, if anybody pinpoints my error, I am in a position of accepting, yeah, it is correct, like. It is in the same way in the language classroom also. The learner is secured enough to take criticism and analyzes one's own language. That is very important. And the last stage is, the fifth stage is adulthood. Okay, that is after having all the criticism, the learner knows, okay, what is what, like. In the same way, so the learner works on the errors and they will improve the language, improve the knowledge, they improve the style of delivering a talk. And now in this particular stage, the learner is becoming the knower. So that's what I am telling. After the fifth stage, okay, the learner becomes a knower. That is very important. So how the learners know the language is the same way of how the person, an individual, from birth they are coming to the maturity, from birth till the adult stage. Here also the learner is becoming dependent to independent stage. So that's why I have given, it is a process of learning a new language is being reborn and we develop a new persona. But in this development, we come across lot of trials and challenges. It is like a trial and error. We do mistakes and from that we will learn it, both in life as well as in the language also. So that's why from physical stage change, that is from birth to maturity, here also in the L2 change that is happening, that is from learner to the knower. So these are, all the stages are combined and given in the form of an acronym, that is SART. all these stages are combined and given in the form of an acronym, that is SART. So, what do you mean by SART? Charles C. Curran in 1976, he has given a kind of term called SART, and here S stands for security, and A stands for attention and aggression, and R stands for retention and reflection, and D stands for discrimination. So what do you mean by S? Security. I feel secured enough with my teacher. I feel secured enough with my classroom community. Securedness. And also the dependent. And A stands for attention. Though it is an easy one by the use of L1, we should be attentive in the classroom. So attention is important. At the same time, aggression also would be there. Okay, there will be a kind of anger would be there. So the teacher's duty is to handle both. We have to make the learners to attend the classroom, as well as we have to handle the aggression of the learner also. And after that, the third stage is retention. Retention is your ability to memorize something, okay, to keep it in your mind and to bring back when it is needed. For example, I have learned a word and I should know the meaning. I should keep it in my memory. And when it's needed, I have to bring back it. So retention and reflection. I have to reflect what I have learned. Is this correct? And how am I learning? Okay, am I happy when I learn language, English language, or am I afraid to speak in English? Like that, I have to reflect myself. So self-reflection is very much important in SART. And D is for discrimination, differentiation. So what is what? How this particular word is different from that word? How simple present tense is different from past tense? And in learning L1, how am I feeling? And in learning L2, how am I feeling? So that discrimination should be come to the mind. And by the way, it is a very important question where SART, okay, in CLL, it has been given by Charles A. Curran in 1976. It stands for security, attention and aggression, retention and reflection, discrimination. And for A and R, both the words should be there and the meaning words should be there. Yes. Next. Next. After learning the theory of language and language learning, we move to the design of it. So, as you know, in design we have certain elements, objectives, syllabus, activities, role of learner, teacher and material. That's what we are going to learn. So, what is the objective of CLL? The happiest thing is there is no specific objectives are defined in CLL, but they are referring to certain aspects, that is, use in introductory conversation courses in a foreign language. That is very simple. I should develop to know how to interact with the other person, how to converse with the other person. It is in the beginning level. And the long-term goal is I should attain the native speaker-like speech. Okay, I have to speak like a native speaker. That is my ultimate goal. Okay, so 2 objectives have been given, but nothing has been specified. That is, you have to remember. So we have to use the language in the conversational practices, and second one is we have to speak like a native speaker. So this is the long-term goal. Yes. Syllabus, here also they didn't give that much specific syllabus for CLL in language learning, but they have prescribed it should develop the oral proficiency of the language learners. Okay, oral, the speaking skills should be improved a lot. And here in CLL, we does not use a conventional language syllabus. Rather, we are advised to use topic-based syllabus, climate change, globalization, okay, and postmodernism. Like that, a topic could be used. So, topic-based syllabus could be used in CLL. And CLL syllabus basically emerges from the interaction that is taking place among the learners. For example, if one particular learner would like to speak about the dress that you wear, then that will be the syllabus for that particular day. So the interaction between the learners, it will be taken as a kind of topic in the target language. So we don't have any prescribed syllabus, but make sure that it is topic based and it should develop your oral proficiency of the language. So on the whole, CLL syllabus emerges from the interaction between the learners only. What do they wish to interact? That should be the thing. And we move to the very important aspect, the types of learning and teaching activities. And we move to the very important aspect, the types of learning and teaching activities. So what kind of activities we could tell is important question, kindly make note of it. First one is translation. Translation means from L1 to L2. So as I said in the earlier, the learners will be sitting in a circle and the learner should whisper a message or the meaning that they want to convey to the teacher, and the teacher should translate the message into L2. So from L1 to L2 it is taking place. Translation is taking place, and the important thing is the learner should repeat the translated message. That is very important. And second one is it is group work. Okay, so in the classroom, since it is community, the group of people who share a particular common belief, common ideology. So the classroom is a community, so where we can have group works a lot. Let it be the small group discussions, or let them prepare a kind of conversation, or let them give a kind of summary on the particular topic, or let them present a particular story to another group, so that the rest of the class could enjoy the storyline. So group work should matter a lot. And recording, after the learner get the message in L2, they have to record themselves in the target language. That is very important. And then next one is transcription. I know you know the meaning or difference between translation and transcription. Transcription is transcribe. Okay, you write in the form. Okay, written form of a word is called transcribe, scribing, writing. Okay, for example, you have listened to it and you have spoke it. It is in the audio form. Now what you have to do is you have to write it, okay, transcribe it. So students transcribe the utterances and conversations that they have recorded. They have to write and they have to check for the clarification and they have to practice it. So transcription, it is an important work. One is translation and this is transcription. Translation is L1 to L2. Transcription is from audio to the written format, printed format. And the next step after transcription is analysis. So the students are asked to analyze the transcriptions of the target language sentences so that the lexical usage, the word diction would be checked on and the application of grammar rules would be responded. So analysis is very, very important. After analyzing it, the class should focus on the reflection and observation. So the learners reflect and report on their experience of the class. How do they felt? How do they felt when doing the group work? And it should be mostly consistent with the expressions of feeling. Okay, how do they happy? Do they happy by learning with the other person, or do they feel the awkward of silence if anybody is not talking? Like, so they have to give their reflection as well as observation. And very important thing is listening. In the conversation aspect, speaking alone should not be given importance, rather listening. Listen in order to get the meaning. Listen in order to listen to your peer, because listening is an important aspect in counseling and interaction also. So students listen to a monologue by the teacher and they have to overhear when the other person is talking also. So listening, overhearing is very important. And free conversation is allowed. So after the students have done the work, after reflecting, analyzing and all, the students should be allowed to engage themselves in the free conversation with the teacher or with the other learners, so that they will be sharing the feelings, whether are they happy or sad. Yes. Sad. Yes. So next we are moving to the learner roles. So here first role is the learner should become a members of the community. That is very important. Here they are not just mere students in the classroom. The classroom should become a community. In order to become a community, the learner should become a member first. And they have to learn through the only interaction. And the interaction should take place only within the classroom. That is the community of the learners. So since we have to learn through interaction, it is not the individual accomplishment of the learning, rather a collaborative achievement should be there. And the very important thing is they have to listen attentively to the knower. Let it be the teacher or let it be the person who knows the language, they have to listen very attentively. And they have to provide the meanings that they wish to express or they wish to repeat it without any hesitation. Okay? And the members should support support the fellow members. Okay, they should accept the member as they are, and we have to make them at ease, feel at ease. Okay, fine, nothing problem in it, we can work towards it. Like that, the learners should be supportive manner. Let it be in both frustrations as well as the happiness. And the very important thing is, the learners should become a kind of the novice. They should become a kind of little bit counselors who understands others' problem in the language. And most importantly, the view of the learner is organic. It is quite natural how the person from birth to maturity. So here also, the learner learns the language first dependently and then independently, so that it is an organic food. Nowadays we are focusing more on the organic aspect of it. So here the learner is considered as an organic person. So it is quite natural. Trial and errors are accepted. Then we come to the important role, that is teacher's role. So where the functions of the counselor should do, how a counselor should be, the teacher should act like a counselor. So where they have to respond calmly. In normal traditional classroom, teachers would be an authoritative figure with all the bold voice and authoritative eyesights and all would be there. So but here the counselor's role they have to play, where they have to respond calmly so that the learners could approach the persons with ease. And they should be non-judgmental. They should not judge a person. If any person has a problem, they should just listen to them and get the aspect what the problem that the learner is undergoing. And they should not judge the person by the problem that they have, just like a counselor. Counselors are not judging, rather they listen empathetically and they give counseling or a guidelines for the particular problem. So that the teacher should be a supportive role, and they have to help the client to try to understand the problem. See, this is what is your problem. Here is what is your weakness. So we can learn it like that. The teacher should make the learner to understand what their problem is this. Yes, and then they have to capture the concern of the client. The counseling's first principle is the concern should be there to go for a counseling. Here also, the teachers should create a kind of an ambience where they have the concern of the learners to learn the language. And in the CLL classroom, we have the actual counseling also here, and where teachers may come across anger, anxiety, similar psychological disturbance they may overcome. So teachers should be very sensitive enough in dealing with the emotions of the learner. So in the early stage of learning, the teacher operates in a supportive role. Students are dependent and the teacher should operate in a supportive role, and they have to provide the translation, and later they have to give a kind of model in the sense a kind of demonstration of how to pronounce a particular word line. But in the later aspect of the stages of learning, they should initiate the students to talk, and then they have to keep quiet, and they have to monitor the learning utterances of the learners, and they can give a kind of assistance. I hope you remember the word scaffolding. Okay, a temporary support could be given to the learner. And as the learning progresses, the students become increasingly capable of accepting criticism, and that time teacher can directly correct the utterances of the learners and supply the grammatical items that are needed. And the teacher is responsible for providing the safe environment. When we say safe, the emotions should be treated in a good manner. Okay, the good safe environment should be given to the learner to learn as well as to grow. So the last aspect in the design is the role of instruction materials. So a textbook is not considered as an important element, because according to the student's topic, the syllabus would be changed. So materials should be developed by the teacher as the progress book, but teacher can use blackboard or overhead projector to give the aspect of the language, and conversations could be transcribed, could be printed and distributed to the learners for the analysis of it. And learners may sit in the group and they can produce their own materials. For example, let it be the script for mini dramas or the dialogues like. Okay. And we move to the procedure of it. So here in procedure, as we have seen the first one, the students sit in a circle, teacher stands outside, students whisper it and teacher translates it. That is the actual procedure. So other than that, teacher can give a 3-minute pair conversations, teacher could give that activity, and the small discussions could be given on any one particular topic, or students could give the summary of the topic that they have discussed. It is for the young learners. For the intermediate or for the advanced learners, teacher could give a paper drama. So what do you mean by paper drama? So paper drama, it has come from the Japanese thing, kamishibai, which means the Buddhist monks, they used to preach moral values by using the picture. I hope you could have seen the image here. So where the pictures would be there, and through the pictures there will be a storyteller, kamishibai boy. So where they will be telling a story, and through that the people, especially the people, those who are illiterate, can learn through the stories by looking at the picture. The same aspect could be applied here, where teacher could use paper or picture images in order to make the learners to narrate their own story. So paper cards could be given and the learners could learn through it. And after practicing the story or the dialogue, the learners can present the paper drama to the rest of the class. And the later stage, they can have puppets, music, drums, along with the images. So on the whole, it is a kind of theatrical performance. And after completing all the activity, the learners should sit and reflect of how have they done like. Okay, so that is very important. Yes. So the final aspect of pros and cons of CLL. So what are the pros and cons? Pros, what are the benefits of it? It works well with the lower level students who are struggling to speak English, okay, who are very much who are taking baby steps in English language. We can very well use this, and it lowers the anxiety of the students, since we are using the L1 as well as the teacher who can understand the problem of the learner. And it creates a warm, sympathetic and trusting relationship between the teacher and the learner. Once the good bond has been created, teacher can do anything in the class. And it trains the students to become an independent learner, and the counselor should allow the learners to the type of conversation that the learners would do. And the cons, it is on the other hand, certain learners may feel hesitate to talk in front of a recorder, sometimes like me. And sometimes in order to become the independent learners, the teacher should neglect certain aspect of guidance. They have to just leave them free. Let's see what they are doing like. And the very important thing is the teacher should be proficient in 2 languages, the L1 as well as the L2. If all the learners are homogeneous, the problem is not at all there. The teacher's language L1 is same and the learner's L1 is same, no problem at all. But if it is a heterogeneous classroom, it is a problem for the teacher. The teacher may know their own mother tongue, but it is not needed the teacher should know all the L1 of the learners. So it is a great con of CLL. And moreover, it is time consuming because the teacher has to give years for each one. So it will be time consuming. And the work of translation, L1 has its pros and cons in learning the language. So the influence of language can be seen in a positive manner as well as in the negative manner also. Yes, so conclusion, we are going to see the overall projection of CLL. So CLL places unusual demands on both the language teachers as well as learners, because teachers are the people who have learned their own subject, the language. But here the teacher should play the role of a counselor, which is somewhat difficult. It is very sensitive job and it should be trained very well. That is important thing. And the very important thing is they should be highly proficient in L1 as well as in L2, where all the teachers may not be accessible towards it. And they must resist the pressure of teaching, because in the traditional classroom the teachers will teach a lot, they will speak a lot. But here they should resist their traditional talk and they have to go in line with the learners' dialogues. And they must be prepared and accepted to accept the learners as they are, especially the emotions of the learners. Maybe their fear, maybe their aggression, their anger. The teachers should know how to handle those emotions, and they must operate without any conventional materials. For example, teacher will be with most of the times with the books. So without books, without the blackboard, teacher should be able to take a class only with the oral aspect. So these are certain aspects that the CLL is demanding, and the teacher should be somewhat culturally sensitive enough to deal the students. And according to the topic, if the homogeneous classroom, it is not a problem. But when it is heterogeneous, according to the culture, the sensitive topics should be avoided. And the teachers should undergo a special training in this particular thing, where they have to give counseling and all. And they have to take a syllabus as well as the objectives, where the teacher should prepare everything. We have lack of syllabus and objectives, which is very much efficient and needed for English language teaching and learning. And the very important thing is, evaluation or assessment is very difficult in CLL. On what basis are you going to evaluate? Okay, whether on the listening aspect or speaking aspect, or the translation aspect or transcription aspect. So on what basis you are going to evaluate, that is also matters. And it focuses more on fluency, not on accuracy, so that learners will be developing the errors on the whole. And CLL at present in the 21st century, we are not discussing or using it that much in the day-to-day classrooms, but one aspect of CLL is very much acceptable, that is humanistic approach, that is holistic learning is derived, which has been in the regular classroom. So let's recall once again. So we have seen the background of CLL, where Charles A. Curran, he has devised this particular method along with his associates, and it is based on two important traditions: humanistic approach and language alternation or code switching. And approach, we have seen structural view and interactional view and social process view of language. And in theory of language learning, we have undergone where from birth to maturity, it is equal to the learner is becoming a learner to the knower. The learning a new language is like getting a new persona. Okay, and then we have seen the design, the objective. We don't have particular objective, but oral proficiency is needed. And then we should speak like a native speaker, and the syllabus, topic-based syllabus, and what the students would like to speak, it will be the topic of that particular day. And then activities, translation, transcription, group work, analysis, recording, listening, reflection, these are the activities we have learned. And then the learner role, learner should become a member of the community, they should be cooperative, collaborative, like that we have seen. And teacher should be a real counselor, and they should be sensitive enough, and they should know both L1 and L2. Okay, and then the material, mostly we won't use textbooks. Here we can use a kind of blackboard, overhead projector, or handwrote materials could be used in the classroom. And then we have seen the procedure, where we have come across 3 minutes pair conversation, paper drama, summary on a given topic. And we have seen the pros and cons, the positives and negatives. And we have concluded that though CLL is not practiced that much in today's world, but still we are getting the aspect of humanistic or holistic learning in our day-to-day life. So that's all with CLL. Hope you have learned it. Thank you.